Hey everybody, welcome to another episode here at Tribal Trades, the daily show coming at you from the great state of Florida. One hell of a drug. And I do want to welcome you to the channel wherever you are tuning in from around the world today. Thanks for watching. What we're going to talk about today is questions that I get asked a lot, and more so just recently with Bitcoin's recent price surge, which is at what price is Bitcoin going to get to? How high can it go? And then secondly, when is a good time to sell Bitcoin before we go into the crypto winter and we see a price drop? So we're going to talk about those questions today, and we're going to look into the charts as well as normal. But before we do that, you know what I'm going to say? You got it. If you're a regular watcher of the show, smash that like button. This does help get this content out to more people and also does help support the channel. I really appreciate all the comments that get left below, all your kind words, encouragement. Certainly do read and respond to each and every one of those. Thank you so much. And of course, all the questions there that get left, I do look to get back to those as soon as I am able to. And don't forget about the cheat sheet. I do get asked about that, or if you're a first-time watcher, I do have a cheat sheet. It is the top link below in the description. It is my roadmap to success in this crypto bull run. Lots of links, resources, free education. There are price targets for entries on coins, and also take profit prices, as well as the Stocks with Josh Discord, the most incredible Discord on the planet. I'm in that there daily, interacting with amazing community there, and there are some links there where you can get started and signed up if you'd love to join us in that community. Okay, so let's look into some articles. The first bit of news I want to look at is, in past bull cycles, Bitcoin has peaked between the 1618 Fibonacci and the 2.272. Following a similar pattern, the next Bitcoin top could land somewhere between 174,000 and 462,000. All right, let's try and bring this down a little bit. I'm actually we've seen diminishing returns on every bull run cycle. So I'm going to go more for the 1618. And the 1618 would put us at about 173,000. We can see the 272 was in the two previous cycles. And so here we have the 2012 cycle getting the 2.272 on the Fibonacci, 2016 getting the 2.272 on the Fibonacci, and then the 2020 cycle getting to the 1618. So if we were to follow that pattern, you would expect the 1618, which is around 173,000, and that's certainly not off the table. So certainly that is something that is a more realistic. So if I'm looking at somewhere between where we are now, of course, and the 1618 at $173,000. Maybe it doesn't get to the 1618, maybe it more gets to the 14 there that isn't listed on this chart here. But certainly I'm not going to have such a broad view of saying 174 to 462 and it lands in there and go, yes, I got it right. Well, look, seriously, come on. So I've previously gone on the record to say I was looking at somewhere between 120, 100,000 and 120,000 as being the place that I felt that Bitcoin could top. But certainly certain events unfolding and bullish momentum, and certainly a bit of a supply chop with Bitcoin, I certainly could see that more go up into the 150 to 170,000 dollar range, and certainly that would be the more upper targets. Now look, I've seen people put up charts for 200,000 and 300,000, and it's certainly possible. Bitcoin's over $1 trillion asset class, and certainly for it to double in price from here and to go to 140,000 would make it a $2 trillion asset, over $2 trillion. And then if it was to go to over 200,000, it would go a little bit higher. What I will do is I will keep my price targets updated as we move along the cycles. And some of you might saying, hey, I think that's a little bit too conservative. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what you think your Bitcoin top price is going to be. Now we're about to enter the parabolic phase of the bull run. Certainly to get up to the 272 here, that 462,000, I think is a pretty hard stretch there for that, considering where we are now and what we have left in the cycle. But certainly I could see us reaching this level here. I think this is a realistic target, but I'm not going to put the bullseye on it just yet. I'm going to stay in my 100 to 120,000 target zone. And if we get to 100, 120,000 in March, then I will be revising my target and say, look, it's outperforming my expectations, and now I'm going to adapt and evolve and set a higher target based on where we are at in the cycle. And certainly when you look at Bitcoin pushing past 70,500, and it's obviously gone past that a lot higher now. The next local top might be around 84,200 according to the MVRV pricing bands. And I don't use these a whole lot. I do find them to be quite useful and helpful, but certainly 80,000 is the next target that I have from here once we break through the all-time high on Bitcoin there. And of course, notice the similarities of all prior US elections and Bitcoin price here. And this is interesting because a lot of people saying, are we going to dump into the elections? Or we're going to dump into the elections. Really, we just haven't really had that kind of situation in Bitcoin's history. Certainly, we've generally pumped into the elections. There might be that you can see a little small pullback there. Certainly, you see little small pullbacks on the way up afterwards, but certainly it's been fairly parabolic. You can see a big pullback here, but that was much earlier on in the earlier cycles there. So certainly you can see that, the three previous cycles, we have gone fairly parabolic after the election, and running into the election has been fairly bullish as well. So we would have to be kind of going against Bitcoin's history. And recently with price, there was a sell wall that came up, 73,200, crush it. Unfortunately, Bitcoin wasn't able to crush that sell wall, not yet anyway. It came up against it there. There you go. There's the sell wall, and it's come and it's been rejected from price. And you can see the Lux Algo order blocks there. There's that sell wall there, and that's keeping price down. So where do we go from here? Well, obviously, if we don't have enough volume to get through this wall here, this order block here, again, we do have a little bit of a trend line here. We've got a few touch points here. We could come back and just do a small retest here of the $71,000 level. Certainly if we were to lose, and what I see lose this is we reject under this trend line here, the tribal trades trend line, by the way, another one here. We could reject under that, go below that, reject here, and bounce off this trend line, and then I could see us coming down further to the $68,000 level. We do have a little bit of an order block a little bit lower where the September high was at about 66,500. So my immediate targets are about that 71,000 level here, the tribal trades trend line that's there. Then further down to that, we would be looking at the $69,000 area here, $69,000 level there. And then if we were to drop further, would be 66,500. To the upside, of course, we could go to Valhalla. We could go to Valhalla if we were to break the sell wall here, break on, make a new all-time high, turn that all-time high around that 73, 74K level, turn that all-time high into support, and then next stop I think is we could move quite quickly to the $80,000 to $84,000 level. And if you actually have a look at the liquidation, and we'll look at these a little bit more now, things are heating up a little bit. We got the liquidation heat map, and if we look at this on the 24-hour, so you see this on the 24-hour, what we have here is we have a lot, most of the liquidity is now below the price. Wow, look at that, at the tribal trades trend line, 71,600, which is right where the tribal trades trend line is the biggest band of liquidity. And then we have more down here, certainly 70,000. Let's switch to the 48-hour time frame here, and we can certainly see again the tribal trades trend line liquidity grab is there. Then we have more a little bit lower, and certainly we still have this liquidity that hasn't been grabbed at that 68 to 69,000 level, which I identified the other day. There is a little bit above price here, and you can certainly see we could come to grab this above price, but most of the liquidity there is below price. And certainly for me, there's a couple of answers that I have, and I can only answer for me because I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. Are you not entertained? And so, but what I would say with this is some people will never sell their Bitcoin. Okay, they're just going to hold it, and you can actually even now borrow against your Bitcoin, and you could borrow against your Bitcoin. Make sure you don't get liquidated if you offer it as collateral if the price gets too low. You can borrow against your Bitcoin. That means if you borrow Bitcoin and the money that you borrowed, if you don't pay it back and the value of your Bitcoin goes below what you borrowed, some institutions will liquidate you and you lose your Bitcoin. So you've got to be very careful there. But you can places offer as collateral, and then you borrow against it, and then you use that money to trade altcoins or other things and make money using that Bitcoin money. Okay, so it's not tied up, because a lot really of how much you sell and when you sell is dependent on a few different factors. Number one, how much Bitcoin do you have? Do you have half a Bitcoin? Do you have only one Bitcoin? If that's the case, the answer for selling the Bitcoin, if it's me, is probably no. If I have 3 Bitcoin or 5 Bitcoin and 10 Bitcoin, of course, I'm looking to take some profits on the way up because I have more Bitcoin to play with. There's more money, there's more liquidity certainly there. And certainly if I sell 1 Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoin, I still have 8, or I still have 7, or I still have 6, or I still have 5. Many people just have the goal of getting 1 Bitcoin. And once you get that 1 Bitcoin, do you really want to sell that Bitcoin and then see Bitcoin go to 200,000 or 300,000, or even in future cycles, 500,000 or $1 million? So that really has to be the question that needs to be asked. What is the purpose of this buy? Is the second question. Is it for hodl? Is it long-term hodl? Am I looking to build generational wealth here? I'm just looking to get in and make some money in this market, and I don't really have big value on Bitcoin. I think there'll be other assets, or I want to use this money to buy a house or start a business or something like that. So, or retire yourself or something. So there's many questions that need to be asked. And also, what percentages of your portfolio? If you only hold Bitcoin and that's it, well, obviously you're not going to make any money if you don't take any profits on it at some point. And so those are the big 3 questions to ask. And another question really is how much that money means to you. Is that money that you can just afford to have locked away for 4, 5, 6 years? There. But of course, I do believe that banks and institutions, now they're allowed to custody Bitcoin, will probably start to offer custodial services where you can use that Bitcoin as collateral to borrow against the value of that Bitcoin or the price of that Bitcoin that they hold there. And so certainly for me personally, I do have targets on the cheat sheet there. And those targets there are just my targets. They don't have to be your targets. If you bought Bitcoin at 70,000, my first target there is 79,000. Then I wouldn't be selling Bitcoin at 79,000. But I didn't buy Bitcoin at 70,000. Those targets are based on prices on the cheat sheet. Okay, so certainly, again, if it's me, I'm very reluctant to sell any Bitcoin at all. Maybe you hold that and hold that as generational wealth. If you have 3 to 5 or 10 Bitcoin, the approach might be a little bit different there. If Bitcoin's the only asset they're invested in, the approach might be a little bit different there. And then as far as when to sell the Bitcoin or to take some profits, and I guess the question also can be asked, well, yeah, I want to hold it for generational wealth, but what if I don't want to see it lose 70% in value and I could buy it back lower? Now, that's a good question. And that's a question of timing the market to see the market top signals coming a wee ways off and making sure that there is Bitcoin taken out. But of course, if we end up getting the super cycle and we keep going, or Bitcoin doesn't drop as much, then there could be a possibility that you end up selling Bitcoin only to see it going up much higher and higher. And then you're left in a situation, well, just do I keep holding what I have, or do I keep selling on the way up and hope at some point there'll be a drop of 50, 60, 70, 80%? In previous cycles, in the Bitcoin winter, in the crypto winter, Bitcoin has dropped 80% or higher. The most recent winter, it dropped around about 80%, but other times it has been dropping less and less each cycle. So this cycle, if we follow the previous cycles, we could see it only drop down 70% or 75%, maybe even lower of 60% or 50%, but because there's ETFs there, and people will say that, but then I'll ask the question, these people are smart. Are they going to be happy to go, oh, yeah, I'm just happy to see my assets depreciate 50, 60, 70%. Well, why wouldn't I sell near or at the top and then buy it back 50, 60, 70% lower as well? So those are kind of the things that you need to keep in mind. There's no real right or wrong answer. It's the answer that's right for you and the decisions that you make, because nobody else has to live with those decisions but you. So anyway, that top of the cycle is meant to finish around this time next year, September, October, November time. Maybe it could finish a little bit earlier, August, July. Maybe it could finish a little bit later in December, but somewhere in that area. And that, when identifying that top comes, can be more and more difficult. But certainly I'll be here every step of the way telling you what I'm doing and what I think, and when I'm selling, and when I hope to be 90% out of the market. And maybe that will help some people out there as well. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there, but until the next episode, which is the altcoin show coming up in a couple of hours, happy trading.